The old man sat quietly at the Yuma Desert SEAL training facility. The young soldiers didn't even notice him until he asked for a rifle and broke a 20-year shooting record with a single shot. That day, everyone learned who Marcus Thompson really was. Welcome to Hidden Story, where we uncover the extraordinary lives hiding in plain sight. Before we dive into this powerful story of silent precision and earned respect, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because we read and respond to every single one. And if you believe stories like these deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us ensure they're never forgotten. The Arizona sun blazed mercilessly over Yuma Proving Ground, turning the desert training facility into a furnace by 9 a.m. Heat waves rippled off the concrete shooting platforms like invisible flames, and the mountains in the distance seemed to float in the shimmering air. Chief Petty Officer Marcus "Eagle Eye" Thompson, 62 years old, sat on a weathered wooden bench at the edge of the SEAL sniper range. He wore civilian clothes, faded jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. In his weathered hands, he held a thermos of black coffee that had long since gone cold. To the 20 SEAL recruits preparing for their advanced marksmanship evaluation, he was invisible. Just another retiree who somehow had base access, maybe a contractor or a maintenance supervisor taking a break. They had more important things to worry about than one old man with tired eyes. The recruits were in their 8th week of training, past the point where everything hurt and approaching the phase where confidence began to replace desperation. They moved with the swagger of men who had survived the worst and were beginning to believe they might actually earn the trident. Petty Officer Jake Martinez, 24, adjusted his rifle scope for the 3rd time. "This desert heat's gonna mess with the trajectory," he muttered to his teammate Seaman Rodriguez. "Yeah, well, deal with it," Rodriguez replied, checking his ammunition. "Word is they're watching extra close today. Some big shot evaluation team coming through." Martinez glanced around the range. "You see any evaluation team?" Maybe that's the point. Could be anyone. Rodriguez's eyes briefly passed over Marcus on the bench. "Even old maintenance guy over there could be taking notes." They laughed. Marcus didn't react. The morning briefing began with Instructor Chief Patterson, a barrel-chested man whose voice could cut through a sandstorm. "Gentlemen, today's exercise is simple. 1,000-meter shots, 10 targets, moving wind conditions. Qualifying time is under 45 seconds. The facility record is 32.7 seconds, set 20 years ago by a SEAL whose name you don't need to know." Martinez raised his hand. "What if we beat the record, Chief?" Patterson's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Son, that record was set by someone who could put a round through a keyhole in a hurricane. You just worry about qualifying." The first shooter took position. Marcus watched from his bench, noting the subtle flaws, the slight tremor in the grip, the rushed breathing, the impatience that made precision impossible. The recruit managed a respectable 38 seconds, hitting 7 of 10 targets. "Not bad, Martinez," Patterson called out, "but not exceptional." One by one, the recruits took their turns. Times ranged from 35 to 42 seconds. Hit rates varied from 6 to 8 targets. Each shooter tried to best the previous performance, but none came close to threatening the mysterious 20-year record. Marcus continued to sit in silence, occasionally sipping his cold coffee. The recruits had stopped noticing him entirely. He was part of the landscape now, as permanent and unremarkable as the concrete barriers or the flag hanging limp in the still air. As the morning progressed, frustration began to mount. The heat was affecting everyone's performance. Scopes fogged, hands grew slippery with sweat, and concentration wavered under the relentless sun. Seaman Brooks, a recruit from Louisiana who thought he knew heat, stepped up for his turn. He'd been talking big all morning about his hunting experience, his natural shooting ability, his certainty that he'd be the one to finally beat that ancient record. He settled into position, controlled his breathing, and squeezed the trigger. His first 3 shots were clean hits. The 4th missed wide. By the 7th shot, his rhythm was gone, and he finished with only 6 hits in 41 seconds. "Damn desert wind," Brooks complained as he stepped back from the line. "Wind's been the same all morning," Patterson observed dryly. "Maybe it's not the wind," That's when Marcus Thompson stood up. He didn't announce himself, didn't clear his throat or call attention to his movement. He simply rose from the bench with the fluid motion of someone whose body still remembered what it meant to be a weapon, despite the gray in his hair and the lines around his eyes. He walked toward the firing line with measured steps, his boots making soft sounds on the gravel. The recruits gradually became aware of his approach. First Rodriguez, who nudged Martinez, then Brooks, still bitter about his performance. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the range despite its quiet tone. "Mind if I give it a try?" Patterson looked up from his clipboard, squinting against the sun. "Sir, this is a restricted range. SEAL training only." Marcus nodded toward the targets downrange. "That record you mentioned, 32.7 seconds? What about it? I'd like to try to beat it." The recruits exchanged glances. Martinez laughed under his breath. "Old timer thinks he can outshoot SEALs." Patterson studied Marcus more carefully. There was something about the way the man stood, the way he held his shoulders, the calm in his eyes that suggested this wasn't some confused civilian who'd wandered onto the wrong range. "You have military experience, sir?" "Some." "What kind of some?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the targets shimmering in the heat. "The kind that matters?" Patterson hesitated. Protocol said to clear the range of unauthorized personnel. But something in the old man's bearing, something in the way he moved, made the instructor pause. "All right," Patterson said finally. "One shot. Miss and you're off my range." Fair enough. Marcus approached the firing position. The rifle was a standard issue Mark 13, chambered for .300 Winchester Magnum, a weapon designed for precision at extreme range. He picked it up with the familiarity of someone greeting an old friend. The recruits watched with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. Most expected the old man to struggle with the weight, to fumble with the scope, to provide them with an entertaining story to tell later. Marcus checked the rifle's action, tested the trigger pull, and made a minute adjustment to the scope. His movements were economical, practiced, without wasted motion. He settled into the shooting position, not the textbook stance the recruits had been taught, but something subtly different. Something that spoke of experience earned in places where textbooks didn't matter. The range fell silent. Even the desert wind seemed to pause. Marcus controlled his breathing, found his natural point of aim, and let his body settle into perfect stillness. Through the scope, the first target was a steel plate 1,000 meters away, wavering slightly in the heat mirage. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked like thunder in the dry air. A fraction of a second later, the metallic ring of the bullet striking steel echoed back across the desert. Hit. Without pause, Marcus worked the bolt, chambered the next round, and acquired the second target. His movements were fluid, mechanical, as natural as breathing. Crack, ring, hit. The recruits stopped laughing. Target 3. Marcus adjusted for a slight wind shift that none of them had even noticed. The bullet found its mark with surgical precision. Crack, ring, hit. By the fifth target, the range was dead silent except for the rhythmic crack of the rifle and the distant ring of steel. Marcus moved through the sequence like a machine built for this single purpose. Target 6, 7, 8, each shot perfect. The recruit stood transfixed. This wasn't the struggling performance of an old man trying to relive his youth. This was something else entirely. This was mastery. Target 9 fell with the same inevitable precision as the 8 before it. Marcus found the 10th and final target in his scope, made a final wind adjustment, controlled his breathing, and fired. The steel plate rang out across the desert with a clarity that seemed to hang in the air forever. Patterson looked at his stopwatch. His face went pale. "Time," he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. 28.4 seconds. 10 for 10 hits. The silence that followed was profound. Marcus set the rifle down gently, as if it were made of glass, and stepped back from the firing line. 28.4, Patterson repeated, louder this time. New facility record. For a moment, nobody moved. The recruits stood frozen, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. The old man they'd dismissed as irrelevant had just accomplished something none of them could even imagine attempting. Brooks was the first to find his voice. Who the hell are you?" Marcus picked up his thermos from where he'd set it on the bench. "Just someone who used to be good at this." "Used to be?" Martinez stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, you just broke a 20-year record like it was nothing." Marcus looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "It wasn't nothing, son. It never is." Patterson walked over, his clipboard forgotten. "Sir, I need to ask again. What's your background?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the targets he'd just demolished. Finally, he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. From it, he extracted a card, not a driver's license or credit card, but something official, something that made Patterson's eyes widen when he saw it. "Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson," Marcus said quietly. "SEAL Team 3. Retired." The recruits exchanged stunned looks. SEAL Team 3 was legendary, known for producing some of the most skilled marksmen in naval special warfare history. "How long ago did you retire, Chief?" Patterson asked, his voice carrying new respect. 15 years. "And before that?" Marcus shouldered his way past the question with a slight shake of his head. "Before that doesn't matter. What matters is what you boys learned today." Rodriguez stepped forward. "What were we supposed to learn?" Marcus looked at each of them in turn. "That precision isn't about power. It's about patience. It's about understanding that every shot matters, whether it's your first or your 1,000th. And it's about respect. For the weapon, for the target, and for the men standing beside you who might depend on your accuracy someday." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You boys are good. Some of you might even be great someday. But remember, there's always someone who's been where you're going, someone who's done what you think you want to do, and most of the time, they're not the ones making the most noise about it." Martinez raised his hand tentatively. "Chief Thompson, would you be willing to give us some pointers?" Marcus smiled for the first time that day, a small, genuine expression that transformed his weathered features. "Son, I just did." He turned and began walking back toward his bench. Then he paused and looked back at the group. "That record I just set? I don't expect it to last forever. Maybe one of you will beat it someday. When you do, remember it's not about the time on the clock. It's about the why behind the shot." As Marcus collected his thermos and prepared to leave, Patterson called out to him. "Chief Thompson, sir, would you be interested in coming back? These recruits could benefit from your experience." Marcus considered the offer for a moment. "Maybe. But not to teach them how to shoot. They'll figure that out on their own, or they won't make it through the program. If I come back, it'll be to teach them how to think." "Think about what, sir?" "About why they're pointing a rifle at something in the first place, about the weight of that decision, about the responsibility that comes with this level of skill." Marcus gestured toward the targets downrange. "Any fool can learn to hit a target, Instructor Patterson. The hard part is knowing when not to pull the trigger." With that, Marcus Thompson walked away from the range, disappearing into the desert heat like a mirage. The recruits watched him go in silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what they'd just witnessed. Patterson looked down at his clipboard, then at the stopwatch still displaying 28.4 seconds. He shook his head slowly and made a note. "New facility record, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson, retired. 28.4 seconds, 10 out of 10 hits." Over the following weeks, word of Marcus Thompson's record spread throughout the SEAL community. Some called it impossible, others called it legend. But for the 20 recruits who witnessed it firsthand, it became something more important than either. It became a reminder that excellence doesn't announce itself with fanfare or swagger. It sits quietly on a bench, sipping cold coffee, until the moment comes to demonstrate what decades of dedication and discipline can accomplish. And every time one of those recruits stepped up to the firing line, they remembered the old man who had shown them the difference between being good at something and truly mastering it. Marcus Thompson never returned to Yuma Proving Ground, but his influence lingered in every shot those recruits took, In every moment they pause to consider the weight of their actions, in every decision to choose precision over speed. Because sometimes the most important lessons don't come from textbooks or training manuals. Sometimes they come from a quiet man with tired eyes who still remembers what it means to be perfect when perfection matters most. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with others. Help us ensure these tales of quiet excellence and earned respect reach the people who need to hear them. Thank you for watching Hidden Story. We'll see you in the next story, where another lesson waits to be learned, another truth waits to be revealed, and another reminder awaits that authentic mastery lives quietly among us, waiting for the moment when it must speak up to show what dedication truly means.